Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, we have the new hot location, Space Throne, and this is surely going to be a interesting one, to say the least. I have a sneaking suspicion there's going to be a whole lot of green goblining going. But we have decks here for all the different pools, so Space Throne, only one card can be played here per player. So pretty pretty interesting one. I think this is one people are gonna get sick of a little quickly, but at least it's only a hot location, so we only have to deal with it for the next 24 hours once this goes live. But starting out here in Pool 1, we have the Safety Blade Special. This is Safety Blade's build posted up over on Marvel Snap Zone. I really like what he did with this build. I think this is probably the best way to go for Pool 1, and we get to use a card that typically doesn't really see any play, Namor. So that's pretty cool. Namor, ongoing +5 power, your only card here, so naturally he is a good fit for the Space Throne, and because we are in Pool 1, we don't have to worry about things like Shang-Chi. Other than that, we do have some other spicy inclusions here to help win the lane. Mr. Fantastic lets us boost power in the adjacent lanes, which is nice. Claw can be a super surprising way to steal a lane out from under an opponent. Spectrum, because we have a lot of ongoing cards, and that way if an opponent decides to be a Namor gamer as well, we can have that bit of extra power boost at the end to beat a tiebreaker. Then, other than that, it's just a very good ongoing shell. We have pretty much all the good ongoing cards here. One card that's really neat for this location is Nightcrawler. You don't have to worry about it as much in Pool 1, but in Pool 2 and more specifically Pool 3 and above, there are a lot of cards that can fill up your Space Throne lane, and I think that's what a lot of people are going to be doing. We're going to look at some decks that do that, but Nightcrawler is a really good way to stop that, because you can just dump your Nightcrawler in the Space Throne and then move it out whenever it is time, and that way you avoid getting Goblin, you avoid getting Debris, etc. So, pretty cool inclusion, and I think it's going to make a lot of sense for this location. That's our Pool 1 deck. Let's take a look at Pool 2. Moving on to Pool 2 here, we have a bit of an anti-location list with Devil Dinosaur. So we do have a little bit of ways of leaning into the location, but we also have ways of just getting rid of it entirely with Storm. I think that's going to be a very good option for Pool 2 once she becomes available. Just really good to be able to just slam down Storm, and that way you don't have to worry about just beating with the biggest power thing in that location. But worst case, we also can beat with the biggest power thing with something like Devil Dino, a Sunspot we pump up, maybe giving a bit extra power there to surprise him with Mr. Fantastic. So a lot of ways of basically altering the gameplay around the location. Again, Nightcrawler included here because just really good at preventing the location from getting filled up unintentionally before we want it to. Then we can move it out, storm it. Pretty good stuff. Vision also gives us another way of playing into our Storm lane as well as other lockdown lanes. America Chavez for some more consistency and just a decent turn 6 play. And then the typical Devil Dino stuff of Moon Girl, White Queen, and Sentinel to keep our Dino nice and big. Jessica Jones for our Storm lane, and Armor to protect things like Sunspot and Devil Dinosaur from their counters. Moving on into Pool 3, we have Ongoing Destroyer with a little bit of tech for the location. Seems like a pretty good option. One cool thing about this is if your opponent happens to Green Goblin you, they can expect that they're going to win that lane, and you can kind of just surprise them out of nowhere with a Destroyer to flip it back in your favor, assuming they don't play anything else there. Other than that, we do have ways of locking down lanes here with Spider-Man and Professor X, and those cards definitely get a boost from Daredevil, letting us know what our opponent is going to be doing on turn 5 when those cards are at their most impactful. Then, of course, wouldn't be a Space Throne hot location without a Green Goblin in here, just giving us another way to close it down. This one really all about just trying to take advantage of that Space Throne and then just putting up a lot of power in one other lane. Armor to protect our stuff and mitigate the downside from the Destroyer. A bunch of other good ongoing cards. Cosmo, Captain America, Colossus, Ant-Man, and then Sunspot, another pretty good one here because just lets us pump it on up if the other options in our hand aren't as good that turn. No Spectrum in this list. I don't think you really need it quite as much as you would without the hot location. So I think you can definitely get by with it. And then Claw, really cool for just kind of surprising the opponent. Again, this is one where if they goblin you, maybe they don't play anything there, and then you can just surprise them with a Claw at the end of the game, flip it back around. So really neat list, and I think it's going to be pretty effective for the hot location. Next up, we have the return of the last meta Tyrant, who got nerfed in the most recent patch, Silver Surfer. So this is a card that has gone down quite a bit in power level, but actually seems like it might have a pretty good way to play into this hot location. So the main reason for that is there are some very powerful 3-drops that can kind of leverage this location to our advantage. So the main ones we have here are things like Debris to fill up the lane once we've already put a card into it, or we can even just fill it up for both of us and then win it with Mr. Fantastic. Storm if we're not really feeling the hot location and just want to get rid of it. Juggernaut, synergy with Storm, and can just bounce stuff out of the hot location if we're expecting them to play into it that turn. Very useful as a potential green goblin counter. And then another really good one here, Polaris. So your opponent plays a 1-drop or a 2-drop, you can just yoink it, fill up their Space Throne, and then you don't have to really worry much about winning that lane. You can just focus down one final lane. So I really like the interaction here, and I think it's definitely going to make Surfer a lot more appealing than it is normally on the ladder post nerfs. Other than that, just a bunch of really standard Surfer cards here. We do have a little bit of early game with Iceman and Scorpion. Brood, always good with Storm and Surfer. Maximus, just the biggest power 3-drop, and then Sarah, so we can play 3 3s on the final turn. So Patriot seems like a pretty solid choice for this hot location, because we can run some cards that are good for disrupting it, while also getting a benefit from those cards naturally. The big one here being Debris, naturally always good in Patriot because we can make use of the rocks, and if we fill up both of the Space Throne sides with our rocks, we can then just buff our rock up, and the opponent usually cannot, so that's nice. Again, Green Goblin MVP just gives us another way of shutting down the lane, and it's not really that bad of a card if we already do have it closed out, so that's pretty good. Rest of it, pretty standard Patriot stuff here. I do think Ultron gets a little bit worse with the hot location, but I think it's still worth running because the hot location is only 60% of game, so you're not going to get it every game. And worst case, Ultron is still a pretty decent stat stick for the final turn, even if you're getting less drones on the field than you normally would. Then we just have other good Patriot inclusions such as Blue Marvel and Blue Marvel and Khazar to buff up our board, and a lot of textless cards like Thing, Cyclops, Shocker, Misty Knight, Wasp. Get a bunch of Patriot buffs and Mystique so we can copy up our good ongoing effects. If you're a fan of Disruption, this next deck is probably going to be your one of choice for this hot location. So Hazmat, the Hazmat combo decks have been going around for a while. Not the most popular deck, but definitely very satisfying to play when they go off. And I think it's going to be pretty good for this hot location because we do have ways of shutting them down, whether that is gifting them a goblin or a rock with Debris and then making it smaller. We also have ways of just disrupting them in general with things like Black Widow, limiting their draw. We can give them a hood to lock up their board a bit. Nightcrawler, like I said before, this is a great way of preventing your opponent from hobgoblining or green goblining you, so that's pretty good. And then you can just move it out whenever you want and just take over the lane, so really nice there. And then we have Luke Cage, so we aren't always going to be getting a downside from our Hazmat or from our Typhoid Mary. Wong to double up on our powerful disruption effects such as Hazmat or Debris. We also have Ironheart in here for a little bit of value and gives synergy to our only top end card here, Odin, who can basically rebuy our powerful effects such as Hazmat, Debris, Ironheart, etc. So if you really like disrupting the opponent's game plan, this is probably going to be the way you're going to want to go for this hot location. And last but not least, we have Galactus. So Galactus, kind of a sweet one for this location because if you're able to gum up your opponent's side of the board with a Hobgoblin or a Green Goblin, you're basically just guaranteed to slam their Galactus and win the game. And it's also pretty good at winning outside of that because if you lose the Space Throne, who cares? Just blow up the location. So this is definitely a teched out Galactus deck focusing on the location. So we are running both Goblins here for maximum disruption, Daredevil to help guarantee our Galactus turn, Cosmo to help stop things like Arrow or Polaris from messing up our Galactus, We're running Wave over Psylocke because it gives us the ability to Galactus a turn earlier, which definitely can be relevant against things like Arrow. Shang-Chi for post-Galactus if we're doing it in a full or just a regular 4-card lane. Shang-Chi can definitely help us win the game. Doc Ock can just get a bunch of the stuff out of their hand, and then we just blow it up with Galactus, or it can be really nice to follow up a turn 4 Galactus with to lock him out of the location. Chavez for draw consistency, Death for a post-Galactus big thing payoff, and we have Destroyer in this slot. So Destroyer, I think, is just another way that can help us win the game. Can help clear out bad stuff from our Space Throne as well. And the other reason we're running this card is it's just a bit more of a budget include over something like Null. I do think Null is pretty decent in general in Galactus, but due to the fact that a lot of goblins are going around, he's probably a little bit worse right now for this hot location. So I think Destroyer is a pretty good inclusion here. And we also have another way to mitigate its downside with Cosmo. So those are the decks. I think there are a lot of great options for this one. I think it's going to be really amusing to see what happens with this hot location. For this one, we do actually have links to all the decks that will be down in the comments below, and you can just use the Marvel Snap Zone copy tool, so just import them. I know I got some feedback on that last time asking for deck codes, so now they should all be nice and easy to import. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.